If that ain't something you're into, you can go ahead and unfollow. Nah.
So I think the point
wait. No, I'm talking here.
Dakota.
Let me talk. So I'm saying this because I think it's important for us to be real in this time and age that we live in.
During today's conversation with Staples and Tents, we'll discuss exactly what is overlanding and how do you get involved. We'd also like to give a special thank you to our partners, Gaia GPS, for proudly supporting us along our journey. So tonight, what we're talking about is what is overlanding.
Yeah.
We talk about overlanding, you know, when we first started, we were all about glamping.
All about it. But we still are.
And we still are.
We still are. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
You know, but we've also had to make some different kind of moves because glamping, it's a lot of gear.
It's hard. It's a lot of work. But
you gotta want it.
For our lifestyle purposes, overlanding is what we started gearing towards. So as we started talking about overlanding, we realized that there was a disconnect, and a lot of people don't even know what overlanding is. Yeah. So let's talk about it.
Let's have a conversation about it. So overlanding, real simple. I think Overlanding Journal, the guys, the family over there, Scott, Brady, Matt, Ashley, and other Matt, have did a pretty good job of giving a base definition for overlanding, which is essentially vehicle-based or vehicle-centric travel, adventure travel into the unknown, exposed to different cultures. In a nutshell, that's essentially what we're looking at. But the key word that I think you guys have to focus on is culture, exposure. So if you're not being exposed to a culture that is different from your own, then are you really overlanding?
Yeah. And I think there are a few other components of overlanding where overlanders tend to go into more remote areas.
Yeah, it can be.
They can.
It can be. I think, when we've traveled, we've found ourselves you have to be comfortable being in remote locations. You have to be comfortable being in remote locations for long periods of time, because you are using your vehicle to essentially support yourself, and are you capable of self-sustained power, or do you need to power up, boondock, or whatever, it's another word from it, mooch dock, if you will, depending on where you are. So those are some of the things that sort of are the finesse nuances.
Could you say that again? Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Siri. But I think in terms of remote areas, a lot of times overlanders, they will stay in cities. It's not just camping. But when I think of remote areas, I think of the cross-country trips where you're driving, whether it's highway driving or off-road driving, you're going through remote areas because when you travel from Atlanta to California, it's remote.
Sure. Now, but there's an interesting point to that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do if you're driving a Prius, a Corolla?
And there are people that drive Priuses
and Corollas, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
That does not mean that you're not an overlander. If you're driving a Prius and you're in Timbuktu and that's what you've been doing and you've been exposed to all these different cultures, so be it, my friend.
And you're out experiencing the world, because that's another key thing about overlanding. It's not about the destination. It's not about me getting to California. It's not about me getting to the tip of South America. It's about the journey and everywhere that I'm taken, spiritually, emotionally, physically, everywhere that I'm taken while I'm trying to get there.
Yeah, culturally, the people that you're meeting, y'all seen that we've taken Frank to some pretty crazy places.
Frank is our 80 series.
Yeah, this is our 80 series, and we love it to death. But Frank is a 27-year-old vehicle. It's old. It's a 97 Land Cruiser, and whatever that math shakes out to be is just what it is. But we've been driving Frank for some years, and of course, Frank gets to the point where it's cantankerous and be like, "This is some bullshit." And it'll punch out the clock and we need to get it fixed. Now, we've broken down in the US and had a very different experience than what we broke down in Colombia. And it's not to say that the experience in the US was any less, I don't know, exhilarating. It's just to say that the cultural experience that we had in Colombia was so significant and so different that it made us look at overlanding differently.
Yeah, they're different challenges.
Yeah.
They're completely different challenges.
When you're talking about talking with people and they are fascinated that your vehicle is an automatic and they've never seen an automatic before and they don't speak your language and you're trying to fumble through it, or you're looking and I had to ride a moped or ride on the back of a scooter at 250 pounds plus, and dude taking me to the hardware store to pick up a battery to put in Frank. I'm on the back of it like a damn kid, like, oh, I can't even believe this is happening. That's a cultural experience that you really don't get when you're inside of your own country. Now I'm gonna piss some people off with this. For my white friends and my Black friends, I'm gonna give some delineations here. Overlanding as a Black person in America can certainly be achieved. And I'll say this, Sonia, and here's the reason why. Oftentimes, the cultural difference, whether you are a city Black person or a country Black person, can be very different as you're traveling throughout the country. And therefore, you are exposed to a very different cultural experience depending on whatever state you're going to.
So I think maybe it's also not a Black and white thing.
But I haven't finished.
It's an urban rule.
No,
thing.
It's not necessarily that.
Okay.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Conversely speaking, as a white person, there are, similar to what Sonia just said, you could be an urban white person or a country Black white person and have a fairly similar experience. But the thing is, oftentimes when you're overlanding, you're not necessarily going to be in city areas. And that becomes the delineation between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Is your cultural experience as a Black person in America is that you're in some of these more remote locations. And whether you grew up as a country boy, such as myself, or a city boy, which is what I adopted or became through adoption, living downtown or living in Atlanta for the past 20 years, there's a difference when I travel to other states, other cities, that culturally, I feel like I'm being opened up. So if your cultural experience and your travels don't necessarily open you up, you might not be overlanding. You could be just doing some long camping trips.
Say that again?
Siri,
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Siri's very connected to me.
Siri is like really listening in tonight. She's really connected to the conversation.
So there's some thoughts out there?
So Chris Phillip, he put in the chat, he has a friend, he goes to a store and a couple guys drive Priuses in Overland. They've gone from LA to Alaska. So that was actually one of the questions that was posed. Do you have to have a big rig to overland? Do you have to have 4x4? And we kind of already talked about it. The answer is no. You can overland in anything.
Or on anything.
Or
a motorcycle,
on any type of vehicle.
There are overlanders who actually bike the entire Pan-American highway.
Who bike the world.
Yeah, walk it. There are people that walk, I'm not going to get into the non-wheel based travel kind of stuff, but I do want to open up the concept of what overlanding looks like. It's not something that's just vehicle based.
I was talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So yeah, I think we've really answered the question. Do you have to have a big vehicle? Because there was someone, let's see, the Michael Chacon, I don't know his last name. His question was, he has a 2-wheel drive Sequoia. Can he overland in that? So yes, I think the big thing, don't get caught up in the vehicle. Even if you do have a 4x4 vehicle, don't get caught up into all of the equipment being put on the vehicle. That's something that we do because, again, we tend to lean more towards the glampy kind of excessive side. We like to be comfortable.
We used to. And I think that we are slowly transitioning away. And I'll tell you one of the things that influenced me. listening to Overland Journal podcasts over the past, I don't know, 2 years now. They do a very good job of interviewing a lot of diverse overlanders and travelers and just people who are out in the world. And one of the philosophies that developed as a minimalist is learning how to move or travel as if you are on a motorcycle. What kind of gear would you take on a motorcycle? And is that sufficient enough for what your travels should look like? Now, I will say this. I'm doubting very seriously if I can put my little coffee setup that I have, but I have reduced it down. I'm now down to a filter and or pour over kind of setup, and I love it. But the philosophy of traveling as if I was on a motorcycle is very different, and I'm not there yet. But I do understand that you just don't need all of the crap that we put on our vehicles, rooftop tents and racks and all of the things that start to add up to money.
Yeah, I think the thing is, whatever four-wheel drive helps. You can go more places with four-wheel drive. That's the benefit of it. A high clearance vehicle, it helps because you can go more places. But regardless of what vehicle you have, you just have to understand the limitations of your vehicle and go where your vehicle will allow.
Yeah.
But trust, like Colombia, Belize,
Cuba.
When we were in South Africa, even though we weren't overlanding in South Africa, we were driving on some pretty rough streets and
we were in a real small car in South Africa.
People every day in other countries, they drive rough streets, what would be considered like a Forest Service road or something like that here in the US, or worse. And they do it on anything, horseback, on foot, in a Corolla, in a Tercel,
a whole family.
A
moped.
Yeah, they do it on whatever they have. So the point
True
is,
story.
you can do these things. You just have to be very creative about the routes that you take. You have to move with the limitations of your truck. If you get in a Corolla, you can't go 20 miles per hour down a dirt road.
But conversely speaking, if you're driving one of those big rigs like a
Unimog,
right, there are limitations to where you can go,
because those things are huge. And in a lot of places, they may have really narrow roads. They may have like low clearance
buildings,
bridges or something.
Any and everything.
And a Unimog, it ain't gonna get like skinny trails like Black Bear Pass or something, or those most dangerous roads in the world.
Well, yeah, but to your point,
but limitations.
There are limitations to each
everything.
Vehicle, and you just have to be within the bounds of what your vehicle is. It doesn't limit your experience in traveling through other countries. It's just something it's another thing that you have to consider. Mm-hmm. I know it sounds obvious, but oftentimes when we're seeing the YouTube world, or even when you all are looking at our trucks and you're like, well, you're driving a Land Cruiser and that thing looks like it's pretty damn tricked out. This is true.
But we like things. That's a fact. We just like things. It just is what it is.
Truth be told. And we've only had to use our winch one time. And it was because of user error.
It was user error. We've never had to use our winch.
Not to say that I haven't, I'm not going to say I'm some hardcore rock crawler. I'm not. But I feel fairly confident when I'm out on the trails. And I feel like I've gone to some pretty good trails. And I've not had to use a winch but one time. So to say that,
fooling around with ATL trail tank.
Right. Max tracks or some traction boards, I do think are worthwhile. And there's a few other things, a shovel or some things that I think are worthwhile to have in your vehicle. But we can talk about that if that question comes about.
Mm-hmm. A question in the chat, because it's really quick. Armand, what's up, Armand? Aggie Pride. North Carolina A&T, our alma mater, if you didn't know. He asked, when we travel out of the country, do we rent or take our own vehicle? So a couple of things. When we went to Colombia, we shipped our vehicle. Would not do it again for that short of a trip.
Yeah.
To ship my vehicle to our vehicle to South America again, we're gonna have to be there for a whole long time and drive the country. We should have just rented a car.
Yeah. We should have just rented. But it was a learning lesson. We needed to understand, what the cost was, what that process of shipping. Mm-hmm. Do you do a ro-ro or do you do a container shipment? For the record, do containment.
Do a container.
If y'all saw the videos, then you know that we got and we got Frank was. They had their way with Frank.
He was great. So
Frank was molested.
So how long were y'all there? Just for a reference.
We were in Colombia Dakota was there for a month, and I was there for about 2.5 weeks. But
does that get it? Armand?
No, that makes sense. I was just wondering because you said that, I mean, a month sounds like a long time, but I guess it's not considering everything that you had to go through to ship your car. So it's good to know.
Yeah. So doing it over again, we could probably rent a vehicle for not too much more than what we shipped it for.
Or a little bit less, depending.
Or a little bit less. But the benefit of us shipping our vehicle to Colombia is we can have all of our stuff.
Or the stuff that
wasn't stolen. But something that I highly recommend, even when you go on vacation to places like Belize or Honduras or Costa Rica, highly recommend just renting a vehicle. A lot of times you can rent from places like Hertz or Avis, mainstream car rental places, and you can get a 4-wheel drive vehicle. When we were in Belize, we got
was it a Hilux? No, it wasn't a Hilux. It was
we wanted a Hilux.
Something Max.
But it was a decent 4-wheel drive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was definitely a reputable 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, it was stick shift, and we just used our Gaia maps, and so we wouldn't get lost. We knew where we were going, put our coordinates in, traced our little trail, and we just went. But even in those places, you can use things like Google Maps. Google Maps works great in a lot of places as long as you have signal.
And the reason why we encourage it, because in my opinion, I think that it starts to make you more comfortable traveling in other countries, because honestly, I think that it is a huge delineation between traveling in your own country, the United States, versus traveling in another country, learning what those laws are. Because, when you're a passenger, you can be very interested in the scenery and not necessarily paying attention to the culture of how people drive and how that influences your own behaviors and helping you to step outside of your own comfort zones for traveling. I thought that, I was a pretty bananas driver for my driving style here in Atlanta. And when I got out there, I felt like I was like straight up from the country. Yeah. When we were in Colombia, I felt like I was from the country on a Sunday morning going to church or something.
Everything in Colombia, the drivers were really fast. They were very aggressive. They, space was not a thing. It was nothing for people to get within inches of you. Yeah. So they just drive different. Yeah.
Motorcycles are king over there, and they bob and weave in and out of traffic. The traffic laws are suggestions until you have an accident, and that is real. And you want to talk about like trying to acclimatize to a culture. Driving in it really does start to open you up and make you really understand how that shapes you as fundamentally a traveler in another country.
Yeah. So take that as a note when you go to other countries, no matter how small, no matter how far, just rent a car and drive a little bit just to gain some experience, because driving on the opposite side of the road, driving in the opposite side of the vehicle, it's a lot. It's a lot.
You need it.
Having that experience, I think it makes you just more comfortable and more of a diverse driver.
Hi, I do have a tip there.
Go ahead, give it.
Yes.
With driving on it's Giselle. With driving on the other side of the road, no matter what country you're in or what vehicle you're driving, as the driver, you are always on the center line of a two-way road, no matter which side of the road, no matter what country. So if you turn on a corner, just be the person on the line and you'd be on the right side of the road. That's one of the easiest tips anybody ever gave me, and it made it so much easier to drive anywhere.
Agreed. Great tip.
Yes, that is a good tip. A good general tip. Thank you.
Yes.
Were
you at Overland Expo East?
Yes.
Yes, I was.
I remember you making that comment. Hi.
Oh, I lost my note. Okay. So
Wait. Did you two divide responsibilities? Was one in charge of the vehicle and the other in charge of logistics, that kind of thing? And that was from Steve H. Great question, Steve.
yes. Dakota drives.
Right. It's fungible, to say the least. I feel so much more relaxed with Sonia in the car as a co-driver. She is very much a prototype to what I imagine AI will be in the future. It's like she is on top of a lot of traffic and making sure that I don't make mistakes, because when we were in South Africa, I remember once I turned into the wrong direction of traffic. And as we're turning, she's like, no, don't do that. Conversely, when she left Colombia and I was driving alone, it was a very fast adjustment that I had to make for traveling and trying to navigate as well as move through traffic. It was very different, and I was very uncomfortable without her.
Mm-hmm.
Logistics, normally in the morning or even when we're traveling, we're always sort of adjusting and talking about where we're going, what we're doing. We try to set route, set everything in place so it's as easy to move or start down whatever the journey's path is going to be that day, and not get lost. We want to make it as automatic as possible. So we have a lot of meetings, if you will, talk about it so that we can be on the same page. So that way, if she does make corrections or makes something, it's not a big deal for me as the driver, because you don't want to get spooked when you're a driver, especially when you're in another country. It really does freak you out.
So in general, even when we're not overlanding, when we're in a city, Dakota's the driver and I'm the navigator. I'm like the co-driver. I only drive under emergency circumstances because I just don't like it. And honestly, when I'm in the driver's seat, Dakota doesn't like being in the passenger seat. So it works for us. But yeah, that's how we do it. And it works really well that we have each other and we can segregate duties. But before you answer another question, we had some questions that were written in. Deborah from Chasing Waterfalls, who is online. Hey, Deborah.
Hey, Deborah.
She asked a question about what started us on this path. Why do you overland? Like, why is overlanding important to you?
You want to start?
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start. So Dakota and I got started in the overland. It was kind of a trick. It was a little tricky. And we've answered this question a whole lot, so I won't go into it too much here. But essentially, the short part of the story, we started camping a few years ago to save our marriage. And once that happened, we got this Land Cruiser and it became a slippery slope, which turned into off-roading and then turned into overlanding. So I think the reason we got into it is because we've always dreamed about traveling the world from the time that we met in college, but we never really understood how we could make it happen and live the lives that we had built, the downtown loft, the fancy cars, working the corporate jobs. How can we travel the world and still have to do all of this? Because I was getting 3 weeks of vacation, Dakota got a little more than me. and we're just not independently wealthy people. But once we discover overlanding as a lifestyle, it to me seemed like a new freedom, you know, where it was a way that we could escape from all of this and really live our dream. So to me, overlanding is freedom, and that is why I want to do it.
So great answer.
Thank you.
And, you know, for me, overlanding is an extension of really what I feel like I am. I'm a traveler. I am a global citizen, and I love to see and be exposed to other cultures. We stumbled into overlanding as a result of us really traveling. And whenever we traveled, we had we've never shared this story really with any detail, and I'm not going to do it tonight. Maybe in some future interview, somebody will ask us about it. But one of our first experience in Jamaica fundamentally changed us as typical American vacationers, and going to resorts and all-inclusives. So from that experience, we were introduced into the true Jamaica. We saw Jamaica as family, because the staff at the hotel saw the genuineness, the authenticity of us, and was like, "You my people.
We want to show you our country,
and let us show you our country, how we live it, how we experience it." And after that experience, we never ever sought to do cruises. We never ever sought to do resorts. And I'm not knocking anybody from that life, and certainly is a life of ease. But for us, being culturally submersed was the only desire.
Yeah, I think it's just something different about going to a place. You know, we would stay at hotels, you know, we stayed wherever we could afford to stay at the time, but it was something different about going and renting a car and figuring it out on your own, as opposed to going to a resort and everything that you're doing is on the resort and you really don't get to experience.
Or having a tour guide or doing the whole touristy thing. And it's not that we don't do touristy stuff. You know, we really do try to hit a lot of the hot spots, but we are self-guided. And through being self-guided travelers, you know the story as it picks up with us saving our marriage, bringing in Frank the Tank and now Dot. It just became a natural extension that we would be travelers, and now we could express it as overlanding. But I will say that I do think that there are people who are overlanders who are not necessarily travelers. They travel into, or they overland into other countries, but they still look for their own
they look for their self
experiences.
They look for their self wherever they are.
Yeah. And if that is your mode, you're probably missing the point of being in another country.
Yeah. Like if you're that person that goes to a foreign country and you find the one person that speaks English,
or you look for McDonald's or Pizza Hut, or any of this stuff that ties you directly to your own culture. I picked up a nickname in Colombia, Dame Dos. Give me two. We'll take two. Because it's of an experience
in Mexico.
Because of experience that Sonia and I had in Mexico. But embedded in that experience and that story was one of being open, saying yes to the world, and saying yes to this cultural experience. And I was like, I'll take, we was in Mexico in Tulum, and I was like, there was people drinking micheladas, and
we were like, ooh, that sounds good.
Everybody got one. I want one too. So me and Sonia, we order it. And we like take one sip, and I'm like, "Yo, this shit is garbage. So, this is the worst drink ever."
I think it's an acquired taste.
It's definitely.
It was like beer mixed with some spicy sauce and lime.
Worcestershire.
Yeah, it was different. Yeah. It was different, and a lot of people like it. A lot of the locals loved it.
Loved it.
But you give me a Negro Modelo with some lime over ice.
Yeah, a
All
Chileda,
day.
she gonna do it all day.
Yeah.
But even though I didn't like having that michelada, it has never stopped me from saying
From
dame
trying.
dos. I'll try anything twice, just because to me it's more valuable to have the cultural experience than to look for what it is that I've been exposed to as a country boy in America.
Okay. So another question. Thank you. That was a good answer. Michael asked another really good question. When we overland, how much time is dedicated to driving and how much time is dedicated to exploring and stopping and visiting? So it all depends on who we traveling with. So Nakota and I typically when we overland in the US, our goal is to get past the middle of the country because it's a lot of just straightness.
The middle of the country hasn't been the most intriguing.
Exciting to us.
And it's not to say that it's not.
It's a lot to offer.
Yeah, we're typically trying to get out west.
Yeah.
And, if there's some experiences Midwest or, in the flatlands, whatever you want to call it, sure, let us know and we'll check you out. But normally we're just trying to get out west.
Yeah. So when we travel in the US, what we typically do, we'll spend like 2 days just going hard to get across the country, and then we'll slow down. We'll stay somewhere for 4 days, a week, however long, experience of what it's worth till we get tired, till we feel like we're lingering, and then we'll move on.
Lingering.
Yeah. It really just all depends on the timeline. Hopefully one day we'll be full-time and this will be our life and we won't really have to rush. And we can just enjoy a place for what it's worth. If we want to stay somewhere for a month, then we do. But it all depends on what your timeline is. That's a very personal thing.
I'll say this. If you are looking at, your own travels and trying to figure out what's worthwhile to see, Overlander, there are a few places that you can jump on, get on some boards that covers what it means to go across the country so that you can highlight things that you think are culturally significant or that you would like to see. And, if you get a chance to see it, so be it. If not, who knows where the road is going to take you. That's the whole journey. But we are more general, and because we know that we want to be open to seeing things that we weren't necessarily cognizant of. When we made it out to the Badlands, we'd never heard of Crazy Horse,
No.
And it was like, once we got out there, we was like, oh, we got to go see this. So, that kind of thing. Or the Petrified Forest right outside
we
of
were
Flagstaff.
driving to Flagstaff and we were like, it's a national park right here, the Petrified Forest. When is the next time we're going to drive down this highway? We have to stop. And it was the same thing. We went to Great Basin. So our days, they really vary how much time we spend doing stuff. Because we really like to see. We just like to see. And if we don't have anywhere to be, and we are fairly confident that we'll be able to find somewhere to stop and stay for the night, we'll just stop and see.
Yeah, true story. And it's a lot to see. This is a beautiful country.
Yeah. So Khaled is the owner of
Foggy Bottom
Cabins in Asheville, you guys. So if you're ever in the Asheville area, he has 3 beautiful cabins, newly renovated. Yeah, working on the 4th. Stop by and see him. But he asked a really good question. What are your thoughts on renting RVs for extended road trips? And especially for someone with younger children. And that actually, great question. And it ties into another question that was emailed earlier. What's the difference between overlanding and RVing? I
think we probably covered the difference. If you haven't been able to discern the difference between overlanding and RVing, I think we pretty much covered it. It's not a matter of it being RVing. It is a matter of the philosophy of what overlanding is.
So I do have one key thing that I think is a really big difference. I think just from what I see online, on Instagram and people that I talk to,
Mhm.
a difference between RVing and overlanding. To me, RVers are very inside people, where overlanding, they can be, not all of them are, but you know, an RV, it's like a house. Like, it's nice, it's really nice, and they have all their appliances. They spend a lot of time indoors. They can. I think that's also a huge difference between overlanding and RVing. Is overlanding is more outside, is the extension of your home.
Can be, because you know, some people, those Unimogs.
Oh yeah,
You know,
Unimogs.
or the
no hate on Unimogs.
The campers. You know, they're RVing. I don't think it's a matter of the vehicle. I think it's just a matter of the philosophy.
Yeah.
Again, and I think the delineation is the cultural exposure.
Yeah.
If you're RVing and you get to a place and you decide that you want to go out and be culturally immersed and come back and be inside of your RV at night, more power to you. I think it's a wonderful way to see the country. If you decide that, you know, you want to take your RV abroad, I think it's a wonderful idea. Just be cognizant of the size of the vehicle that you're using for RVing, because oftentimes once you get out of, let's say, America proper, Canada proper, and you're in some of these older countries that might have developed in the past, let's say 300 to 400 years, their roads are oftentimes very narrow, and it could be very difficult to navigate. So if you got a family and you still want to, you know, RV, I think it's a wonderful way to see America and see other countries as well. I will say this, as no matter what vehicle or whatever it is that you own, you have to 100% own your vehicle if you're really going to start traversing outside of the country. You know, you could get away with Canada and Mexico, maybe some of South America, but once you get into like South America, where you're shipping it in a ship across the Panama Canal or from America, whatever, or trying to go to Africa, you 100% have to own your vehicle. Yeah. So, and I do not know many people who have shipped a RV. Oftentimes you're physically limited unless you're going to do a row, whatever that is, whatever that experience would be with the RV, I don't know. But those are some of the considerations that you would have to have well thought out if you're going to do an RV going into a different continent.
Mm-hmm. So that was the answer, I think, to our question that we got earlier, the difference between RVing and overlanding. But to answer Khaled's question, what are our thoughts on renting an RV? Absolutely do it. Whatever it takes to get you and your family out and traveling, do it. Do it.
Get out there.
Y'all know that song?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I know you know it, Khaled. That DC funk. My boy get it crunk. Yo, if y'all get a chance to go check out Khaled at Foggy Bottom Cabins in Asheville, do it. My man is a master at hospitality and extending himself. So shout out to you, my guy. Thank you for having us. It was a beautiful experience, and you made me love Asheville that much more.
Yeah, it's a beautiful property. You can hike and go bouldering right on property, and it's conveniently located to everything that you need to do in the area. Yeah. Not sponsored, y'all. Just love Khaled's property. So, another good question from Stephen H. Do you put a time limit on what a distance or time into what qualifies overlanding to you? I would say no, because we considered ourselves overlanders before we started going internationally, before we made our first cross-country trip, just because we knew that's where our passion lied.
And I'll be the first one to say maybe I'm a lot more modest. I still don't consider myself an overlander.
True story.
I think that we have all of the elements.
We have tendencies.
But without us necessarily being on one of these extended trips past a month, I think that we still have a lot to learn. it took me 4 years to learn how to produce perpetual energy so that the vehicle could support the refrigerator off grid without us having to boondock or mooch dock. So I still think that there's a lot that the kinks of overlanding that I have to work out. When you get to a point, like when we went out to California, I think we did it for like a month. And, there was a point when Sonia was like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to go home. But so you can't do that.
So y'all pray for us and our goals to make it full time, because that is going to be my home.
Right. You got to go through these kind of break points of what it means. If you've camped for more than 10 days, I'm sure you recognize that by like day 3 or 4, they're break points when you're like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm packing it up. I'm going to go home. Well, when you're overlanding, you're going to go through those same experiences. And what happens when you can't turn around and go home? Because wherever you are is wherever you are. And the journey is that way and not that way. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're still faced with. And that's just being real.
So I think we answered every question that is currently in the chat, with the exception of who's going to Overland PNW, Pacific Northwest. Overland Expo is doing Pacific Northwest for the first time. Anybody going?
It's right outside of Oregon, right?
Or it's somewhere in Oregon.
Yeah. In Oregon, yeah. I saw somebody way there. So
yeah, somebody's on the fence.
Is that Steve?
Yeah, I think that was Steve.
Yeah. So we're trying not to discuss our plans because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's happening behind us that is part of our magic box here. So just know that we're working on what's going to get us there. But we would love to be at any of the Overland Expos. They have truly welcomed us. The Overland Expo family have truly welcomed us to the group. And I don't know if any of y'all have ever been to an Overland Expo, but
it's a lot.
But the people that are there, man, they're good people. That's all I can tell you. They're good people. And I really enjoy being around overlanders, whatever the experience level. All of us are very curious people. We're also great travel stories to be told, be heard. Everybody feels like they're a chef, so there's great food to be eaten, and the drinks are always pouring. So if you've never been to an Overland Expo, highly encourage you to go to one that we're going to be at, so we can all kick it and do whatever we do together, kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar, if you want to learn more about overlanding, it's a great place to do it. Our very first year, we got our Land Cruiser. That was one of our first stops, was Overland Expo East. Yeah. We took the driving classes, which are really beneficial if you want to get experience driving off-road.
That was 7P. 7P was teaching. They're located out of Prescott, Arizona. Graham, I can't remember. I think it's Graham Jackson. He was the person that taught us in that first year. And I'm going to tell you, I learned a ton about off-roading. And if you are trying to understand how to off-road, what type of things you need to think about in off-roading, how to do basic vehicle recovery, any and all things off-roading, it is a wonderful place to start. And I highly recommend it. If you were to go back that way and see our videos from when we started, when we thought we were off-roading, I'm a hell of a driver, but I wasn't an off-roader. And because of that, we damaged the truck, got it stuck, and had some pretty horrid experiences that I think a lot of it could have been alleviated if we'd had some basic training.
Some more training.
Yeah, so highly recommend linking up at an Overland Expo and getting all of those courses under your belt.
Yeah, and another benefit is you just get to meet more overlanders. Like we met Giselle when we were there, so many other people. And this year was the first year when we went to Overland East that we actually participated as instructors. Nakota taught a class.
I taught my first class.
He taught his first class, how to manage a car, a vehicle when it's overheating, because especially when, you know, we're driving these older vehicles, they have issues and you need to understand some basic mechanics, because it's guaranteed to happen. That's one of the reasons we upgraded our vehicle to the 200 series. And then you get to listen to people with expertise. Like we sat on some panels this year about how to make it full-time overlanding, which clearly we're not full-time overlanders yet, but you know, we're trying to get there. And we told about our experience, you know, how to go about shipping a vehicle or do border crossings. There's so much, it's like a wealth of knowledge there and really good people. So if you're interested in learning more, it's a great way. And then come to the gathering next year, because we have all sorts of good classes too about managing.
We don't know what the
but like
are.
what we did last year was managing your solar supply, camp cooking, building a fire, all sorts of good stuff.
Gaia GPS navigation. You know, we're trying, you know, we're also learning, you know, truthfully how to be entrepreneurs and how to have things that are useful and interesting to people who come to the gathering. Yeah, we have a great time, and we certainly did. But we also wanted it to be something where you could walk away and feel like you were a more complete person, a more complete camper, more comfortable, more confident about whatever it is that you were going to do. Because we know that when you guys go home and start talking about doing some of this stuff, your family, your friends might be looking at you like you're the expert. And we want you to feel like you are more comfortable being able to speak to these things. So yeah, come to the gathering, get that skill set, homie.
Yeah. And then another benefit of going to events like that is you get to like all the cool gear and stuff. Like Chris from AV Overland Supply, Chris Phillip, he's in the house tonight. AV Overland Supply. So if you need anything for your vehicle, you have questions, reach out to him, contact him. He's a great resource. So I have a question for you guys in the audience. Feel free to jump in. What about overlanding interests you?
Yeah, just go on and jump in. We're drinking juggle wine tonight from our camp supply. And I'm now empty.
Yeah. So who wants to go first? Nobody.
I guess I'll go first. Hello, everyone. So my name is Chris. I was born in Barbados, actually. I moved to New York in 2003, and I lived there. You know, I was concrete jungle, and you know, you as a New Yorker, you get to love New York, living there for that long. But I moved to California in 2016, and I was introduced to everything that's California, the mountains, the sea, literally everything within, you know, a whole shot. Just everything's here. And I immediately stopped my street racing and all that, drag racing and all that nonsense. And I bought a Subaru, my second Subaru, and started off-roading just like that. And I fell in love with it almost immediately. California is a beautiful place to visit. There's tons to see. And, you know, fast forward 4 or 5 years later, here I am with my own overland store, you know, with the help of my wife and my family and, you know, all my friends and whatnot. We are coming up and, you know, we're trying to get more inclusion. You know, I'm trying to get more of us into this space. And there's a lot of us out there, you know, but getting us all together, you know, like, you know what I mean? That is pretty important to me. And, you know, just be able to help people go out and enjoy California. just, or anywhere actually.
True story.
True story.
True story.
True story.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me make it correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me make it correct.
Deborah,
Deborah.
it's an echo from somebody. Okay, Deborah keeps me honest. She said, I said the gathering next year. I'm sorry, I'm still in 2021 in my head. There will be a gathering in 2022. There will be a gathering later this year. Still trying to figure out dates and locations. We may be traveling. We'll see. Give us somewhere to go.
But yeah, to speak to Chris's point there, though, the off-road and overlanding community, as far as African Americans, there are a lot of us out there, and I feel a lot of what Black People Off-Road was about, and its fundament and what it meant to establish it, was to be this type of beacon, because we have really good white friends who were part of other off-road groups that didn't necessarily reflect their values, and they felt like they were silenced. And through the love of off-roading, they loved it, but it's like, yeah, I don't really feel some of the topics or how you all feel about some of the things that you're suggesting.
Mhm.
So when we create, even though Black People Off-Road is fairly, I will not deny the ethnicity of it, but it was also really to try to open it up, and it required us to be vulnerable in a sense of putting this type of spotlight out into the world, because we knew that it could attract a lot of negative energy at the expense of bringing together a lot of Black people. But we felt like we could shoulder that if it meant that we could create a community of like-minded people from whatever background that you come from. And I'm gonna tell you now, if you're not a person who likes anything dealing with the LGBTQW and all the other letters communities, I love them. We have too many friends. I live in Atlanta, and I have too much respect for who they are. So if that ain't something you're into, you can go ahead and unfollow. Nah.
So I think the point
wait.
is,
No, I'm talking here.
Dakota.
Let me talk. So I'm saying this because I think it's important for us to be real in this time and age that we live in. There are a lot of things that are out there that could take us away from this planet, COVID being one of them. And for us as Staples and Tents and Black People Off-Road, we wanted to be open to everybody, because we have been shunned in this world enough times that we recognize that other people don't have a voice, or don't feel comfortable, or don't feel safe, and they have to pretend, or they have to be quiet, or they have to wear these masks. And I've been in the government my entire life serving our country, and I have had to wear a soldier's mask, and I've had to be quiet in ways that sometimes was painful. And I just want to be as real and as vulnerable and as open, and so that other people who are out there can feel like they have a safe space. And creating that safe space is everything for us, so that we can truly grow the type of America that the forefathers, whether they wanted it or not, whether they intended it or not, so that it can be. So I'm sorry I had to say that. I had to make my peace with that.
So, and I think the whole point is, our goal is to be inclusive for everyone, and to not focus on the differences that we have, acknowledge the differences, but not focus on them, and focus more on what we have in common. If off-roading and overlanding and going camping and playing in dirt can unite people and bring people together, then that's exactly what we want to do, regardless of the background that it comes from. So although, we rock Black People Off-Road, we just want everybody to come out and have a good time. Can't we all just?
No, we will all
get along.
Hey, if you're a white guy and you love country music, hey, bring it to the table, homie. Let me listen to it.
What about a black guy that loves country music?
Black guy that loves country. If you're a black guy that makes country music, I'm all for it. You know, I am a musically diverse person.
What's your favorite song that
You can buy me a boat.
what's the name of it? You can buy me a
I ain't rich, but I damn sure wanna be.
Yeah.
Working all day like a dog ain't working for me. Hell yeah. Buy me a boat.
Buy me a boat, a car, a truck to pull it.
A Yeti.
A Yeti 110. Ice down with some silver bullets.
Hell yeah.
I don't want no silver bullets though. So, okay, does anybody else have any questions? Because y'all know me and Dakota can get off on a tangent. Y'all know we can get off on a tangent. So, any more questions about overlanding? Yes, please, Steve.
We get back on topic.
Pull us back.
God damn it. I don't have any questions. I'm just saying thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you guys being.
Sorry about that.
Passion.
Say again. Wait a minute. We got two of y'all speaking at the same time. So Brandon, go ahead. I'll add.
I wanted to say thank you. I appreciate you guys' passion, and I'm so thankful that you spend as much of that passion as you guys possibly can, representing multiple different facets of this to get people out and together. That's the only reason why I ever did it. So it means a lot.
Yeah.
Unite.
Thank you. And so Brandon, gotta shout Brandon out a little bit too. He's one of our friends from Asheville. We've never met Brandon. We've never been able to connect with Brandon. But every time we go to Asheville, we try. And
Brandon and I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've connected. I've never been able to connect.
Yeah.
And Camp Clean official. So if you're in the North Carolina area, you want to get your overlanding vehicle detailed, check out Brandon and Camp Clean official.
But wait, there's more. Brandon, I need for you to hook up with Khaled. You have the farm, right?
That's right.
So Khaled has the cabins. You can have the farm. I'm thinking there's a connection here.
Definitely. It'd be a lot of fun. We're doing events. We're kicking back up some events this summer with 828 Overland. We're just trying to figure that out too, because I run that also. So I do Camp Clean, the detailed company. I run 828 Overland. I'm one of the founders of that, which is just Western North Carolina's hub for overlanding and the connections. Basically what you guys are trying to explain and connect people to. That's all we've been doing for the last 3 years, is trying to break down the cliques, the jeepers, and the people who are super intimidated or have dealt with like the pretentious nature of some of this stuff, and just mull that over and bring everyone together and say, hey, this is not a scary thing. You can learn to get out, and you don't need to do it with this type of vehicle or all this stuff. You can, there's, for me, overlanding's always been about like reducing labels. It's interesting. You can find a lot of like pretentiousness in some of this stuff, but you can also watch like some of the off-road videos from the Australian guys, and they're barely wearing shoes and not even sober the entire time they're doing it, but they find a way to have fun. So just remember, however you do it, don't ever get caught up in what it looks like. Just get out there. Just get out there and try to be smart and connect with people. So that's part of what I do too. But yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody. I'll put my email on the bottom.
Yeah.
And he also has the Nobo trailer. And do you use it when you're overlanding, or is it just something local?
So the Nobo, the No Boundaries Forest River has boundaries. Yeah. Regardless of what the name says, you have to be very conscientious of the fact that like some of this gear is it's geared towards off-roading and overland people, but you have to really do your research to what can go somewhere and what can. And the Nobo is fantastic for our family of 4, and we use it at campgrounds, and we'll use it in boondocky type campgrounds too that don't require power. It's great for that, but I wouldn't take it back deep in the woods or anything. So we've got a rooftop tent and all the ground tent stuff for that. You just, over the years of doing it, you find that you won't have just one setup, right?
Yeah.
So you walk to your garage and you're like, what's best for this application now? And if it's like, and if it's a bunch of gear because you've got kids and you want to take the camper, we do that. There's also those times where we're getting back to the basics of like what hiking the Appalachian Trail is, but in a vehicle, like taking the least amount of gear, like you were saying, a minimalistic approach. So I like doing that too. I like the idea of a swag tent and just enough Pop-Tarts to get by for 3 days.
Beer. And beer.
Yeah, just in beer. You have to remember, you have to expand, so there's so many different ways to camp, but you'll find yourself, you do it enough and you find passion in getting outside and touching dirt. You'll walk into your storage spaces and you'll find in the next 3 to 5 years, you'll probably have more than one way to do this.
Yep.
No doubt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Steve, were you about to say something also?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. So first off, I wanted to echo Brandon's comments. Really appreciate your efforts at putting, I guess, a face to a group of people that haven't often been represented in this endeavor. A lot of times when I'm out there, I'm the only one. And if I'm in a group, if I'm not by myself, and it's good to know that there's other people that look like me that enjoy the same types of things, even though y'all went to A&T and I went to Hampton, and it is what it is. But
my niece went to Hampton, so I'll give you a pass.
we could talk later about that. I know we know some of the same people, but I'd like to say thank you for that. And Brandon was dead on with the comment about there's so many different ways to do this, so many different ways to skin this cat. If I'm going going off-roading to go hunting, that looks different than if I'm going off-roading to go off-roading, which looks different than if I'm going to drive to a campsite and I'm setting up. I haven't jumped into the rooftop tent arena yet, and I just can't bring myself to do it because it would go on my FJ60 and it barely gets uphill as it is here in the mountains. But I'd like to say that. And I think the original question before a couple questions was, you posed it, how did I get into overlanding? And like you, I was in the military. And a lot of times when I would travel and I deploy, I'd be like, man, I'd love to come back here. I would love to see what this looks like when it's not in conflict. And then I ended up doing it for work as a civilian in the Middle East, where I actually was overlanding, although I didn't know that's what it was called at the time, because this is in 2003, 2004. Overland Journal wasn't there yet. I just remember like putting a tire on the top of my Pajero, so I could carry 2 extra spares in case something happened to one of them. And then, I'm sleeping out of the back of it and doing all that kind of jazz. And then, I think for me too, I fell in love with Toyotas and fell in love with, before I knew what overlanding was, I had a Toyota FJ40, thought it was cute, hung on to it, sold it. But then when I'm around in the Middle East, I'm like, look at all these cool Toyotas over here. And so then I got into the culture of that. And that's kind of my love of Toyotas, my love of that specific vehicle is what helped draw me into the overlanding world more than anything else. But hey, look, I've also had a Range Rover Classic and a Discovery One and, various pickup trucks. And I drive a daily drive a 100 series. And, the last comment I'd like to make is there's a danger in siloing yourself into, I am a Toyota guy. I'm a Land Rover guy. I like rooftop tents. I like, I'm a strictly minimalist guy. I mean, whatever your bent is, that's great. But being open to new experiences, different types of vehicles, different ways of doing things, I think is kind of what makes overlanding so appealing for me, because I get exposed and I'm always challenged on what I thought was the right way to do something. I find something that I like just as much that ends up with the same result. So those are my comments on overlanding.
Thank you for
Well
that.
said. Well said.
Thank you.
And I'm only going to pick on this guy. He spoke earlier But he is a brilliant mind and a hell of a photographer. Armand, I know that you've heard a lot tonight. You got to have at least one question.
Oh, I mean, I had a question earlier, but no, I really appreciate this. I've never been overlanding myself, but the interest did kind of come about like over the past pandemic. I don't know if it was just like being trapped in my house or my apartment. I live in New York as well. I think somebody else on here is from New York, but so I started like diving into like overlanding and what that is. I mean, I recently just bought a Jeep, so it's not quite overlanding ready. It's very much a daily driver, but yeah, that's why I wanted to join the call because I know that you guys are making a lot of headway in terms of like the gathering, and I look forward to like getting more details on that because I want to attend. And then also the expo. Hopefully, I go to one and everybody's there. But yeah, I just enjoy like the conversations because I think this is how I kind of learn from everybody else. But yeah, this has been good.
No doubt, my guy. No doubt.
Yeah.
And you're driving a Cherokee, what?
Yeah, the 2000 Jeep Cherokee actually. I actually just got it from the shop today because I had to do some work on it, like some suspension upgrades to it. But it's been fun. It's been expensive, but I think I'm gonna chill for a little bit, just to like spare my wallet, I guess. But
Yeah.
I think one of the things though, so it's like you can get lost into the internet and like in the webs and the forums in terms of like doing these type of things to your Jeep or your vehicle. And it's good to like have these spaces where you can like talk to people and understand their experiences, whether it's overlanding or making adjustments to their vehicle, or how they kind of approach just like that lifestyle. So that's one thing that I really appreciate, and I look forward to like hearing more about in the future.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here, young buck.
Yeah, man.
Chris got something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got a real quick comment to Armand. On a daily basis, sometimes 2-3 times a day, people come into my store who have never overlanded at all. They don't even know what overlanding is, but they want to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I had this older couple come in. This was shortly after I first opened the store. They had never overlanded, but they had a nice Tundra. The guy went and bought I can't pretend, $4,000, never used it. He's got a fridge, doesn't even know how to work the fridge. And he came into my store and bought like $2,000 worth of stuff. And I told him, like, look, have you been out? He's like, no, I've never been camping, never been overland. I'm like, you don't need that. You don't need this. You should probably put that back. But I say that to say, I tell people all the time, go take a trip.
Yeah.
If it's just one day or a day and a half, go somewhere. Take what you have. And then when you take this trip, see what you need. What you want and what you need are two different things.
Yeah.
So people come in and to see all the stuff, and then pick up a bunch of stuff, and then they find out, well, I don't need this because I got something similar at home already, or whatever the case might be. But easily go take a half a day trip somewhere, go to the beach and cook a meal, see what you need for shelter or what you need for cooking utensils, or to be comfortable on at the location.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's something I plan on doing.
Yeah, and I think it just goes back to the earlier point that was made, that you don't have to have a certain type of vehicle, you don't have to have a certain type of equipment. It's really just about getting out there, having the experience, creating the experience, no matter how short or how long it is. The first step is to just get out there.
Yeah.
Devontae has his hand up, but before we acknowledge him, Deborah asked a question in the chat a while ago. How long is the longest we've been out, and where did we go? So the answer is a month, like 5 weeks.
Together, we did out to California and back over a month.
Yeah, it was about
5
maybe
weeks.
4.5, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So we got a long time, a long gap between a month and a year and a lifetime, but we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there, like
We're
a
gonna
day at a
y'all-
time.
Y'all get to see it as we experience it, for better or for worse. You know, if you know anything about us, you know mistakes were made from day one, and we're gonna brave this whole thing once we finally get out there. So you'll learn as much as we're learning from our experience as well.
Yeah.
Devontae.
Your hands raised. Did you have something to
Got the
say?
forerunner, if I remember right.
Mm,
You got your hand up.
maybe not.
Did he click off? If you're
No, he's
talking,
right there now. Okay, he's muted.
okay.
He put his hand down, so maybe he didn't have anything to say.
Okay.
Okay.
So is that Khaled has his hand up physically?
First of all, thank y'all for this, and it's just good to see that everybody's in different stages of all this stuff here. But you know, for me, it was more just coming out of DC and doing weekend trips into Shenandoah. Initially, just kind of renting a cabin there, and then me and my wife, we actually go and camp Huntington State Beach out in South Carolina. It's just south of Myrtle Beach, and with that, you just we do it. Clam and everything, and we've been able to take a lot of our gear down. We had the Honda Element and Subaru, and from there, just being out there, being able to cook and things like that. We've done it once with Layla now, and so just it's something that I've always wanted to do. I think your truck is a beast, and it's really really big. Back home, I'm originally from East Africa, so Land Cruisers and things like that are really really big out there, especially once you leave the city. That's really kind of the way that you get around. But for us, really, the goal has been kind of once we get this established out here, continuing to learn about that. And with our kids being so young, and now we've got the dog that's getting bigger by the day. We just would need something just because amount of gear that you need to take with you for the family. So, it's still more of a building, get to a point where we can go for extended trips together and try to have somebody here who's going to be able to run the space while we're out. So it's not something that we're going to do, anytime soon, but we're slowly trying to build to a place where we can do that. And, having contacts like the folks that you have here, we can just learn from really to make sure that we do it the right way, so everybody's comfortable and do it safely is kind of like that. So definitely plan on reaching out to you, Brandon, and anybody else who has any ways that could kind of help us out with that. We definitely love to just learn. So thank y'all for this. So I really appreciate it.
No doubt, my guy. No
Thank
doubt.
you, Khaled.
Vincent.
And, yeah, we have about 15 more minutes left before we're like scheduled to be done. So, Vincent. We
You're
still
muted,
can't
you're
hear
muted.
you, Vincent.
There we go.
Yeah.
I just want to jump on really quick because I'm not much of a talker, I guess. But I just want to say that I found your channel and it has helped me tremendously. I'm not like completely 100% overland ready, but we've my family and I love the outdoors. We've recently went to my wife and I were in the military, both retired. I'm Army, Navy, and she's Navy. But we recently went to Vegas and did a lot of the state parks. And man, I was like, man, I need to come back here and just be out here. We had a rental car, did some kind of stuff in the rental car, but it definitely, this channeling has definitely helped me in the confidence in going outside of my surroundings. Because sometimes it could be a little bit intimidating when you go places and you look around and they don't look like us. So that is definitely intimidating, especially in the climate that we're in. That's kind of the most interesting part. But I just wanted to jump on and say thank you. I appreciate it. And I look forward to the gathering because I already discussed it with my wife. She's like, yeah, we're going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the support too.
And so I think Vincent, he made a really good point. One of the things before we knew what overlanding was, before we started camping, like Nakota said, we like to travel differently. We really like to see outside of cities. So what we would do, we would fly to major cities. We would fly to Vegas, fly to LA or fly wherever. And then we would do the same thing that we encourage you to do internationally, just rent a car and drive all over the place. Within minutes of Vegas. You can see some beautiful
There's
scenery.
a Red Rock, Hoover.
Hoover Dam, the Valley of Fire. It's just some beautiful things right outside of Vegas. So you can have the nice, comfy, hotels and restaurants of the Strip, and then just get out really quick and easy.
And I'll speak to this whole thing about being comfortable and stepping outside of your box. The other night we got a chance to celebrate birthday dinner with a dear friend, and his brother-in-law was there, and he was sharing with us that he and his wife, they've been married for about 20 years or so, and every year they were going to Vegas 4 times. And I asked, had you ever been to Hoover? And he was like, nah, we wanted to go once, but it didn't work out. And my mouth was on the floor internally because, it was such a thing, because a lot of us as Black people, and I hate that I'm stereotyping us this way, and please forgive me, because I know that it is not all of us.
So I think a lot of people are just uncultured.
I was talking there.
Okay.
So you want to jump in on me. But a lot of us, when we associate vacationing, we typically associate it with going to a city or going to a beach. And one of the things that we really want to do is to open it up and expose people to, you can go to Vegas, have a good time, go check out some of the shows. I'm gonna tell you, I'm a big Cirque du Soleil fan, but in addition to it, make some time to get outside of the cities and stretch yourself a little bit. I know that it can be uncomfortable when you get to these places and you don't see people that look like you. But there are a lot of people who don't look like you that are very encouraging, very open, and very helpful. And I am a big fan of meeting people and giving them the chance to find the connections that make us brotherly and sisterly and friendly and all of that thing. And even if we don't agree on things, it doesn't mean that I don't have to ignore you or pretend that you're not there.
Right. Thank you. He got it all out.
So you be jumping in like, wait a minute, I don't want you to come out your face.
Even when we're on meetings, I tell people I never know what's gonna come out of Dakota Staples' mouth. So
Trey on here. Is my boy from work on here? Trey?
He is.
Trey, no.
Yeah.
But
he actually just dropped off.
I am I oftentimes
say it like it is person.
Yeah.
But let's hear from Nathan. Nathan. What's up?
Hey, folks? How you doing?
Good.
First off, wanted to say happy 42 to Mrs. Staples there.
My birthday.
How's it feel to be in the 42 club?
What up, young buck?
Not a whole lot. So I wanted to say to everyone on the call, because I've never met any of you, so happy New Year's to everyone. Hope everyone is happy, blessed, your families are good. I want to thank the gentleman earlier for the information that they put out. There's a lot of military family on here. It's good to see. I just retired Army, 24 years in December. So to all of my brothers and sisters in arms, it's good to see you.
Congratulations and thank
you for your service.
Well, thank you all. Thank everybody out there for everything that they do. Thank you too, especially because, like everybody's been saying, you really shined a light on the opportunities for so many of us out here that didn't know. Like my overlanding experience really was Iraq, so that really wasn't overlanding. But you made the best. We made the best we could with what we could. So when I got back home and I got settled, I really wanted to dive into it. Bought me a Jeep, like the gentleman said earlier. Don't pigeonhole yourself to one vehicle. But Jeeps are my thing. My cousin, he had a Jeep in '95, and he was bumping LL Cool J back then. So that was our thing. But I really wanted to get on and say thank you to everybody for the information. It's really the community. The feel is great. The Staples folks, y'all are great people. It's good to see y'all out there. It's good to see y'all smiling and healthy and melanated and great. And to the gentleman who gave the information earlier, Mr. Kramer, Steve, I forgot the other gentleman's name. My apologies. Thank you all for the information. It's well received, and keep helping folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for participating and joining the community.
Yeah, and sharing, bro. Thank all of you for sharing. We really are wanting this to be a community, and as a community, I think we all recognize that every voice is important and has a place that should be shared and communicated. So we are humble from where we began in every facet of our lives, and we're here to help. And if there's anything that we've ever said that might not have been received well, just reach out to us and let's talk about it, drink a beer about it. I'm on deck for it.
Yeah. Devontae had his hand up, but Steve, he just asked.
We should go to Steve. I mean, Devontae, because he.
Hey,
right,
can I finish?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I was talking. Okay, so Devontae had his hand up, but before Devontae goes, Steve put a question in the chat. Where's everyone from? So if everyone could put in the chat where they live. We're in Atlanta. Hopefully soon we'll be citizens of the world. But Devontae, what do you have for us tonight?
I just want to say thank you guys for putting a spotlight on other Black people going off road overlanding. When you said earlier about you went to Petrified Forest, I actually used to work for the National Park Service, and I used to work at Petrified Forest, and that's what got me into overlanding. Just being out west, and I just had like a Scion TC. I couldn't really go anywhere, and I decided to buy me a Toyota 4Runner. And ever since then, I've been all over the West, all over the East Coast. I was hoping to go to the gathering last year, but hopefully I'll go this year. And, I heard what I think it was Chris, the guy from New York. He said he just bought him a Jeep. Being new to overland, and you see all these different accounts on Instagram with these tricked out rides and, 35 rooftop tent, take it slow. I wish I would have took it slow. I spent tons of money on stuff that I didn't need. I got to use it, but I could have waited a little while. Spending a lot of it. Overlanding is not cheap. And, like the other guy said, take your first trip, go out there, see what you need first, and then go back and, slowly build up your build and stuff like that. But I just want to say thank you. And it's finally nice to, get on here and meet you guys. I know I've spoken to both you guys on Instagram, and I just want to say thank you. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So, Devontae, I'm gonna give you this mic back because I do want you to sort of chime in on your National Park Service, and I want to say thank you for that service. The Ranger, and was before he walked away was already showing himself to be a stellar star within the National Park Service. And Devontae, before I give you this mic back, I want to say one thing for anybody, especially Armand, I'm sort of looking at you with this. I tell every single person who buys a new truck or a new SUV or whatever it is, and they're talking about this build out that they want to do, drive your vehicle for like a year, as is, go to as many places as you can, do resist the urge to add to it. Get to know your vehicle first. And you would be surprised at how many things you don't need that you see on a whole bunch of these trucks that serve you not, but dig into your wallet in ways that just don't help you. Your money should go to the experience, not to the truck. So,
Absolutely.
Devontae, can you just share with us a little bit about maybe a few things about the National Park Service that could be a use for us to know that we might not know?
Yeah. So I used to work for the National Park Service, but now I work for the Forest Service. So I would say there's a big difference between the National Park Service and Forest Service. You know, like with the Forest Service, you go out west, you can camp pretty much anywhere. With the Park Service, it's a little bit different. It's more about conservation, preservation and conservation. And you know, when you go to these national parks, just be wary of where you are, because some national parks you can go off road and do whatever you want to do. Some national parks you can't do that type of stuff. When you go to these national parks, you want to make sure you know what you can and can't do, because I mean I'm law enforcement, so I was the one that I had to deal with, you know, people doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. So when you go to these places like national parks and national forests, just be wary and know the rules and regulations of what's going on, what you can and what you can't do, and we want you guys to have fun. We want you guys to enjoy the experience of national forests, national parks, and we don't want to on my side of it, writing citations, law enforcement, stuff like that. So when you go to these places, just, do your research. Some people think they're in national forests. Some people think they're in national parks. They think they can do certain stuff that you can do in one, but you can't do in the other. So just be wary and, do your research and, just enjoy your time in these national parks. So, and national forests.
Okay, so I don't know if you two planned that, but we couldn't have had a much better situation. Thank you for that. The number one step in Leave No Trace is to plan and prepare. So whenever you go somewhere, the first thing you should do is come up with a plan and prepare for everything that you need. And the next time, we're going to try to have these conversations monthly. And the next time we're going to talk about overlanding responsibly, because it's not enough to get out there. We have to take responsibility for our actions and the contributions that we make, good and bad, to the world, because global warming is real. And if we get out there and we are irresponsible overlanders and off-roaders, then not only will we damage what's out there, but roads and trails and all this stuff, parks will get closed down, so we won't have access to it. So next month, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how to overland responsibly. And we'll see. Maybe Devontae, he'll be a special guest and help us talk about it. I'm not going to put you on the spot today. Just throwing it out there. Yeah. You seem like you might have some expertise. So
I'm all for it.
We really in doing this it wasn't last month. We took December off because of the holidays. But in November, when we did this, we had Ron Frazier from A Tribe Called Camp and Camp Yoshi, and Teresa Burge from Glamp Queen, as well as Sonia Staples and Dakota Staples of Black People Off Road and Staples and Tents. But we had a panel to talk about being outdoor. Overlanding while Black, camping and overlanding while Black. So if you haven't seen it, it's on our YouTube channel. Feel free to go and look at it. It's a really good conversation. Love all the conversation tonight. Thank everyone for participating. Thank Dakota for keeping me straight and so I wouldn't overtalk him.
We balance each other.
We balance each other out, and we hope that you guys will join us next month when we talk about overlanding responsibly. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Subscribe. Tree troopers.
You guys,
night, y'all.
You guys have a great night. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please give a thumbs up, share it with a friend that you think may be interested. And also a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. Please consider joining us on Patreon, patreon.com/Staples and Tents.